Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Crystal and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about period poops, why they happen, and what to do about them. Now I'm sure that period poops need no introduction, but if you aren't sure what I'm talking about, basically period poops coincide with menstruation. Oftentimes they are a different pattern than you're used to. They could come way more frequently and the consistency is often different, aka they're usually a lot looser. And they're not that fun. So if you're like me, you might notice that your bowels kind of change a few days before your period, maybe even like the week before your period in your premenstrual phase. And this is normal because in your premenstrual phase, your progesterone levels are really high, and progesterone is an amazing hormone, but it can also slow digestion down. You might experience more constipation, you might experience bloating, as well as water retention. And usually these things all go kind of hand in hand, you know? If you are constipated, you probably feel more bloated, you might have a bit more water retention because of that. Now this is a very normal thing that happens during the premenstrual phase, so I'll talk a little bit about what to do about that coming up. But a lot of people experience constipation and then when their period starts, it's like the total opposite where they just can't stop going. So the reason why that happens is because when you are menstruating, your body is producing prostaglandins. So your uterine lining produces prostaglandins because prostaglandins help create an inflammatory response that helps shed the uterine lining. So prostaglandins might sound bad because they kind of create this inflammatory response, but they're not. They're good. We need prostaglandins because if we didn't have them, we'd have a really hard time shedding our uterine lining. However, if there's an overproduction of prostaglandins, oftentimes that causes us to have pretty painful periods, but it can also cause your intestines to contract, which can then cause you to have more frequent bowel movements. So not only will you experience more trips to the bathroom, but your bowels will probably be a lot looser in nature and maybe even look like diarrhea. And so that is why period poops happen. Another thing that you might experience in your premenstrual phase as well as your menstrual phase is anxiety. Anxiety can be heightened in both of these phases. In the premenstrual phase, it can be due to hormone changes. As you move to menstruation, some people find that they feel really anxious because obviously when you know that your period's coming and it's going to be really painful and uncomfortable, that can cause anxiety. And I wanted to mention this because anxiety is something that a lot of people struggle with, and it can also cause you to have bowel movement changes, whether that's constipation or diarrhea. So I just wanted to mention that because that could also potentially be a cause of what is happening too, or maybe on top of what's going on. So how should you deal with this? How should you deal with period poops? Like, what the heck? So I want to start off by talking about some tips that can help with constipation in the premenstrual phase, because this is something that so many people struggle with. And I know that it's not technically period poops, but it's still something that I think should be talked about and addressed because constipation is uncomfortable, but there's a lot of things you can do that will help keep things moving. Some things that can help manage if you're struggling with constipation in your premenstrual phase is making sure that you are including lots of insoluble fiber in your diet. I know when a lot of people are constipated, they kind of want to stay away from food or at least fiber-rich foods, and that might work for some people. But if you're doing that for a number of days, it can potentially cause things to slow down. Of course, you do you. You have to figure out what's going to work for you, but fiber is just so important. It does keep things moving even when you feel like things are a bit stalled. Another really important thing is to stay hydrated. Of course, we all know that, but hydration is really important. Exercise is also super important for constipation because it keeps things moving. I know it can be really uncomfortable when you're feeling constipated or bloated to work out, but even walking, like really gentle exercise, still gets your body moving. And so just incorporating some of these things on days where you're not really feeling your best, but you still want to get a little bit of movement can make such a big difference. And lastly, what can help with constipation is magnesium citrate. So magnesium citrate is a type of magnesium that's not easily absorbed by the body, but it can help your bowels move. So basically, magnesium citrate is a really great way of getting things moving and emptying in a more timely fashion. If you are struggling with premenstrual constipation, magnesium citrate might be a nice option for you because you have it at night and then in the morning, usually you have a pretty easy bowel movement. With that being said, if you struggle with loose bowel movements in general, magnesium citrate probably is not right for you because it can create looser bowel movements. So this is really only an option for people struggling with premenstrual constipation that can maybe make things a little bit better. Of course, always super great to talk to your healthcare provider before having any of these supplements, just in case you're on any medications or anything like that. So let's get to the good part. So what can help if you're having period poops and your poop is really loose in nature and you're just not having a really good time? So I know what works for me, but I wanted to hear from you. So I went on Instagram and I asked you, my community, what helps you deal with period poops? And I got so many answers. And the answers I got were just really, really helpful. And I just love hearing from you. So thank you so much, because I think it's so important that we learn from each other. So things that I kind of came across in my research was to reduce caffeine intake, especially coffee, because coffee can make your bowels empty pretty quickly, and a lot of people use coffee for that reason. But if you are struggling with looser bowel movements, it could potentially make things worse. However, when I asked you on Instagram what helped, some of you said that coffee did help, that it kind of just emptied everything out really quickly and that you didn't really have to deal with it anymore. So I think that's really interesting. So it's definitely something you have to play around with. I know that that probably wouldn't work for me personally, but we're all different, and so that's why I wanted to put it out there. Another thing that a lot of people mentioned was eating foods that are rich in soluble fiber. And foods rich in soluble fiber kind of create like a gel, and so they kind of not only help with the consistency of bowel movements, but they can help slow digestion down just a little bit so your stool becomes a little bit more bulkier. And that's really, really important if you're struggling with loose bowels. So foods that are really rich in soluble fiber include oats, apples, bananas, sweet potatoes. A lot of people said that they like to eat rice and bread and really, really simple foods around their period because they found that those foods were really, really easy on their digestion and made things a lot more manageable, which makes a lot of sense. So looking towards foods that are kind of more rich in soluble fiber can make a really, really big difference. And that would also include like ground flaxseed, psyllium husk, and so those things can also be really, really helpful. And I thought that was such a great tip that I wanted to highlight, like soluble rich foods. Of course those would be super helpful. A lot of people also said that oily food, spicy food, and fried food was a no-go. They were like, that is the worst. So a word of warning, if you're gonna have spicy foods, oily foods, or fried foods around your period, it could make your period poops a little bit more intense. I'm just saying. Other great tips included staying hydrated with tea, which I thought was great. A lot of people like chamomile tea and peppermint tea, which are really, really great for digestion and just helping settle the stomach. Someone also mentioned ginger tea because it helped them with period pain, which then helped them with their period poops, which I thought was a really, really great idea. And we all know that ginger is so helpful for period pain, but if it's helping to reduce inflammation and helping to kind of reduce the prostaglandins or the inflammatory response of the prostaglandins, of course it would help with period poop. So I thought that was a really, really great idea as well. And so that's definitely something that you can try the next time that you might be experiencing some less than ideal period poops. A few people also mentioned that they like to use CBD oil because it also reduces inflammation as well as pain, and they've noticed that it helps with their bowel movements. Something else that you could try that would reduce prostaglandins and actually block them is NSAIDs. So NSAIDs are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. And so those are really just things like ibuprofen that you can get over the counter. Ibuprofen is a really common NSAID. So it actually blocks prostaglandins. And so what happens is that when you take ibuprofen, it blocks prostaglandins so you're not getting period pain anymore. But it can also help stop period poops, especially if the period poops are being caused by this overproduction of prostaglandins. And so I think this is really awesome to know. I know everyone has their own tolerance with pain medication or that kind of thing, but these things are over the counter, and I mean, if it can help make things better, it's something to look into. And to make period poops more manageable, try using baby wipes, or if you have a bidet, whew, you are living large. So baby wipes can make things a lot more comfortable because obviously if you're going to the bathroom a lot, it can just get really dry and uncomfortable down there and not super fun. So baby wipes are a really great option with keeping everything just feeling a bit better. And a bidet could also just help with comfort levels. I don't personally have a bidet, but I had some people mention that when I asked my Instagram community how they deal with period poops. People were like, get a bidet, it's amazing. And I have a friend that has a bidet and she loves it. So that might be something to look into. I mean, why not? You also save a little bit of money on toilet paper, I mean. But a bidet and baby wipes are two things that can make period poops just a little bit more manageable and slightly more pleasant, if you can even say that. So now that we talked about what can help when you're having period poops, let's talk about some preventative things. So I always suggest trying to like get to the root cause of why you're having the period poops. And for a lot of people, it's this increase in prostaglandin production. And And so that can be really easily supported with healthy diet. And so increasing anti-inflammatory foods in your diet like turmeric and ginger, super great for helping just reduce overall inflammation in the body. Flax seeds as well as chia seeds and walnuts and plant-based omega-3 supplementation can make a really big difference because these foods are all very rich in omega-3s, which will support healthy prostaglandin production. And foods to kind of maybe watch out for or stay away from would be dairy. Dairy can do a number on your hormones, so get that on out. And then vegetable oils. So if you cook a lot with oils, that could potentially also cause you to have an increase of period cramping and period pain, and potentially increase prostaglandin production, which then could domino effect into having worse period poops. So these are just things to be mindful of. You have to do what's right for you and what feels comfortable for you, but those are two foods that can make things worse. So I just want to put out there because I think prevention is really important, and so eating well, staying hydrated, exercising, you know, doing you, super important for having a good experience during menstruation. And so if you have any tips and tricks to do with period poop that I didn't mention, please comment below. I love hearing from you, and I know everyone else in this community loves hearing from you too. Thank you again so much for watching. As always, your cycle matters so much, even if you're dealing with period poops, and I'll talk to you in the next video.